Conversation time. Coochie conversation time.
Coffee! Coffee!
Where you at? Where you at?
Coffee! Coffee!
Where you at? Where you at?
Wednesdays, starting November 2nd at noon.
Cheryl, please, let me tell my friends. Come on. I've kept a secret for so long.
And you've done a great job keeping the secret. It is, we're almost ready. We almost got everything lined up. I'm so ready, so excited to do this video cast.
You don't understand. I can barely keep Christmas presents a secret. How am I keeping this a secret any longer? I can't do it. I have to tell my friends.
You just got to keep it secret a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer until the timing is absolutely perfectly right.
Oh, Cheryl.
Wednesday. Welcome to Coffee, Coochies Conversation. I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Kelly.
And we have a special guest here today, a veteran, a blogger, works in mental health. You're a board member and CEO of the local NAMI chapter, is that right?
No, I'm a board member for NAMI.
Okay.
One of I believe I'm the newest board member over at NAMI, and I'm also co-founder and CEO at Quad City Behavioral Health Associates.
There we go. That's where I was getting my...
That's a lot of words there, though.
Tell me, other than being, went to school for this. Now, did you go to school after you served in the military, or was it, okay. So when you went in the military, what was your job in the military?
So I joined the Army as a cavalry scout. Initially I went to college for law enforcement, and then, I graduated with an associate's degree from Blackhawk, and I was like, still a little young. They won't really trust me with a handgun, so I got to do something.
So we both look at each other.
Well, when you're 20 years old, you can't really join a police department. So I was like, okay, so I'll go to school for a little bit longer and join the Army and, add to my resume. And so I picked a Cav Scout because I felt like I needed something to prove, or I had something to prove. And then when I got out of the Army, that's when I went back to college and decided to sort of revamp myself and go in a completely different direction. And completely different direction I went.
So the EMT, where does that come in?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to school at Blackhawk. I was also a volunteer firefighter and EMT.
And was that with the local?
Yes, this is over in Kelowna.
Okay. So you went in the military, Cavalry Scout. Was beforehand, did you know you wanted to go into behavioral health?
No, not at all.
Okay, so
the
you
earliest,
could tell us kind of how that happened.
So when I was in middle school, we had to take these career evaluations to sort of see what your interests are and what you might be good at. And I remember one of the results that we had was psychologist. And all of my friends just laughed at me. They're like, "Could you imagine Cutmus being your therapist?" And I even thought it was funny at the time. And then, fast forward several years, I took a couple courses at Blackhawk in psychology. I really liked it, but that wasn't what I thought was going to be like my career direction. But my experiences in the military sort of, pushed me in this sort of direction. And I allowed myself to be pushed in that direction. And I'm so glad that I did, because I love what I do. I love who I work with, and I wouldn't change any of this for the world.
That's awesome. How long were you overseas, and how long were you in the service?
So I was 3 years on active duty, and I served in the reserves for a few years after that. But I was deployed to Mosul from 2007 to 2009, 15 months.
Okay. So for those of us that might be geographically challenged, Mosul.
That's Iraq.
Okay.
Northern Iraq.
Just to be sure. Mm-hmm. And so what years did that fall in?
I left November of 2007, came back January of 2009.
Would that be quote unquote, that was after Saddam Hussein was passed away then, right?
My recollection of history is not the best. It's around that time. I don't remember if he was caught while we were there or if he was caught after. It may have been after. I'm not sure.
what I'm wondering is if you brought back any Saddam Hussein money with you.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Actually,
what I really want to know.
they were very picky about stuff like that. Like you couldn't take anything home. Like war trophies and stuff like that were something that was against policy. I even had there was a stone that that an uncle gave me that had like a Bible verse on it, and I took that back to Iraq with me when I came home from my mid-tour leave. But when I tried to come back home for good,
They wouldn't let you take it.
customs took it because they're like, this could be you probably picked this up in in Mosul, which is weird. I don't remember seeing a lot of like Christian souvenir shops in Mosul, but so they took it from me. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they considered money to be a war trophy.
Oh, I never actually saw any of the Iraqi money. We used to. There was this one shop that would make bread, like this flat bread that was like really good, and I would give somebody $5, like US bucks, and they'd come back with a big ass like hefty bag full of this bread. And then you would just eat all of it. Then you get to the bottom and see a bunch of crushed eggs and stuff in it. Oh. But yeah, that was the American dollars went a long way.
It sounds like it. I have a Saddam Hussein $20 bill, and it's in my safety deposit box. I'm just going to hold on to it a little bit tighter now that I know that not everybody has them, because I thought I kind of heard that in the fall that they were like everybody had them because they had no value.
Yeah, probably.
So that's, I thought maybe you had like a whole wad of $100 Saddam Hussein bills, and we could go out after the show and like flash the cash that isn't worth anything. But, that's the way my brain works. And I think I might have warned you, I'm a little twisted.
That's all right.
Yeah.
She's like, I warned you.
All the best ones are.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you think about the candy cane and the way the colors twist around, yeah, I'm twisted. She's more like the candy cane. She's, I'm just twisted all around it. So, which is why we both thought you would be a really good guest to come in and talk to us about serious things that maybe people don't necessarily want to talk about, and you're certainly qualified to do that. We're qualified on the end of, at least I should speak for myself, I'm qualified on the end as, do I need a therapist? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I do. Depends on the day. Depends on who you ask.
I think everybody could use a therapist, though.
So,
I mean, what could it hurt?
I might be a bit
life
biased.
coach. Yeah. Well, that's okay.
Well, and this time of the year is hard. That was kind of the conversation that started to happen last week with our guest. And I think we're all experiencing that a little bit. These last couple years have sucked.
To say the least.
Yeah. And so what is your experience with the last couple years and what you've seen and noticed in people?
Like, is there something in our water right now?
Can we filter it?
I just there's sort of like when you take a big step back from practicing, you kind of look for patterns. This time of year generally it has always been really rough for families and individuals, and I don't necessarily think that COVID necessarily did any. It made it different. It made things worse for a lot of people.
Magnified it?
It magnified it. I would say that one of the bigger challenges of this time of year is grief. And with all the deaths from COVID, it just means there's more death, more, and the holidays are going to sort of like be worse from that. But the holidays just generally are hard on a lot of people. And a lot of people think that it has something to do with just like, oh, well, you're depressed and then you're lonely when you're in the holiday season. It's way more than just that.
What about the weather and just the gloominess alone is bothersome?
Yeah, I think we're trained to look forward to the summer because, like, you think about growing up, what was your favorite time of year?
The summer.
Because of why?
Because you could be outside, the sunshine, the good
No
weather.
school.
Okay. No school.
Oh,
you can
no
do
school,
whatever the
yeah.
hell you want,
Yeah.
and so we associate that warm weather, the hot weather, the outdoors with less stress. But we could flip that. Like as adults, it's like we still work over the summer.
Right.
So why can't we do that over the winter?
Right. I lived in Seattle for a year and a half, so I know what.
Right?
Like the first thing that people did when I got there was hand me bottles of vitamin D. So like, yeah.
The sunshine factor or the vitamin D factor. I get what you're saying so much because expectation plays such a huge role. Besides the fact, I believe that, and this was just kind of on a thing about TikTok, and that if you are shown absurdities all the time, you're going to start reflecting absurdities because that's what you think is normal. And so if everybody around you is saying winter sucks, you're going to walk around and just, if you're not rejecting, you're accepting the
Absolutely.
information or the data that's coming in. And so I will consciously out loud sometimes say I reject that statement. Because again, if you're not aware, you're literally accepting. Does that make sense? So it is how you approach it or how you look at it.
Yeah, there are people who like genuinely have like conditions that affect them in the winter more than any other time of year. And then there's the rest of us that are prone to giving ourselves cabin fever. You know, those are two completely different things. I'll hear a lot of people say like, oh, I've got seasonal affective disorder. It's like, you know, there are people who do, and then there's those who maybe just never prioritize fun over the winter, or they that negative talk that this is terrible. You know, I don't like this. But, you know, there's other ways to look at it. Like, it's pretty outside when there's snow and ice and stuff like that. It can be pretty. Not to drive in, you know, I wouldn't prefer to drive in it, but I mean, visually, winter can be pretty stunning if you let it be.
Right.
But there's also the other stuff is, you know, I like how, you know, when you step in like fresh snow, that sound, that crunch, it's super satisfying.
When's the last time you made a snow angel?
Well, I have a 4-year-old, so we do it all the time.
And that's fun, isn't it?
Last year we did it. Oh, yeah. She
Okay,
loves it.
and making the snowman?
I mean, I didn't do the angel. My daughter did, by the way.
Well, why didn't you do the angel?
Right?
Right. I don't like to be cold. That's why.
And then this would be the true reason of the holiday. So if you were dressed with warmer clothes.
Yes, probably. But do you prepare for that? Like going to jump in doing a snow angel very often? Like normally it's like on a dare, right?
Sometimes it's an accidental snow angel.
Yeah,
know,
there
like,
you go. Exactly.
You slip on the pavement.
Exactly.
Well, and if it's
I
after
did that last year. Holy moly.
after the bar is closed and you have alcohol in, you're warm anyway. That's
True
when you do
story.
the snow angels if the kids aren't around.
Yeah.
And I know you like to go to Snow Stars, so I know you like to be
I
outside.
want to do that. Well, no, I haven't done that in 10 years, though. See, that was why I was like, we got to do this. I'm just trying to get a group together to go sledding at Snow Star.
And when you have the hot cocoa afterwards and you're dressed right, or the peppermint schnapps in between,
Right?
and you're dressed right, that and I love
They
the
have a bar there,
snowmobile.
too.
I love the snowmobile.
You really do.
I used to skate. Now I don't know that I would. It's not the skating that makes me nervous. It's the falling that makes me nervous. Same thing with snow skiing, but it really is. It's about getting out and enjoying it, but also flipping that script.
Right. And I do understand like there's the importance of bringing others with you too, because like if you were to go by yourself, you know, you might, I mean, a lot of people could enjoy that, but if you know that it would be more meaningful for you to have others with you, then yeah,
For a group of people.
that'll make
yeah.
it so much
I
better.
put it on Facebook.
Should we add you to the list who might want to go to her party?
Where do you practice out of? Did you say,
I'm in Rock Island.
oh, you're in Rock Island now. Okay. We're at Rock Island.
Do you know where? It's Black Hawk Road. There's a let's see. There's a Jimmy John's there. Pickerman's used to be there.
I know where that is, actually.
Yes.
On the corner. Pickerman's was like right on the corner there.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So you know where he's at?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stalk him, but yeah, I wanted our friends and family here on the show to, know where they can
We can send you a Christmas card and an invite when we go sledding. I'm not against sledding either. I'm not against, I'm going to do a slip and slide if I've got a hill in my backyard to do it in, and you know I got a hill. Oh, I'm talking summertime slip and slide.
Oh, okay.
You've seen the hill in my backyard, right?
No. Oh, yeah.
Well, we could have a little fun.
You could do both.
Yes, exactly, because
There you go.
it is having fun. But we're also, I think, simplifying it to a degree in terms of the grief experience.
Yeah, that's a whole other ballgame.
It is, and it's huge. So there are two things, the grief experience, and I think that ties in a little bit to our, what feels like the uptake in suicides. I had a friend I saw this morning on social media, posted 16 hours ago. His post was, "I'm tired of this fucking shit." And then his comment at the bottom was, in the comments was, "I would welcome death."
Oh, no.
He's really lost everything due to the last couple of years owning a business that didn't qualify for anything. I mean, has lost all that professional stuff. And so when he posts that, I don't know what to say. Several people had said dial 988. In that situation, as a layperson, what do we say? Can we say anything to somebody and have it land right?
That's a good question.
You know, it's a lot of times people will shy away because they don't want to make things worse, or they think that just by mentioning suicide that it's going to make somebody, it's going to put the idea in their head. And that's not true. If it's in their head, it's already in their head. If it's not in their head, if they don't want to do it, if they're not going to do something like that, they won't by you mentioning it. The other thing that people feel pressured to do is to try to talk people out of their feelings in those moments. And that's incredibly invalidating for a lot of people, and it just serves to push them further away. And so,
can you say that one more time, please?
Sure. Trying to, when you hear somebody who's disclosing some pretty dark thoughts, the impulse is to talk them out of it, to talk them out of those dark thoughts. Well, you have so much to live for. You know, you have people who love you. You know, and those are great things for them to hear, right? But there's a time and place for that. But when someone's actively suicidal, trying to discredit their feelings, actively will push them away. They'll be less likely to talk to you because they don't think you're interested in understanding them.
So that's where the agreement that, yes, it does suck. And what follows that?
Listen.
Just listen.
Listen.
Lucy, and just listen.
You listen, and then there will be a spot where you'll feel it, where something further can happen. And if you listen to a point, you'll get to that spot, and that's where you can start to, talk to them more. Like, that's when you can start contributing to the conversation. And that's when you can start talking about things like, well, what are we going to do? You know, like, you've got these dark thoughts, you've got these this horrible situation that you're living through. So what can we do? I know of some hospital resources that can keep you safe for a little bit, and then they'll link you up with a therapist to do some of that longer term work. I can sit with you for the next couple of days, or I can organize it so that you have somebody with you to keep you safe. That
support system.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the ways to get through those moments. The vast majority of suicides are, they're impulsive. And, most people who actually succeed in it don't, it's not something that they really plan out for the long term. It's just sort of like the straw that breaks the camel's back. They're not thinking rationally or correctly. And then they just do something impulsive. And that's when we start talking about access to, lethal means and things like that. So if you know somebody who has firearms, when they get that impulsivity, they aren't thinking rationally. They may have been a responsible gun owner for their entire life, but in that moment, they are not responsible for that type of stuff. And that's when you can organize to see if there's a safe place that you can put them. like with a family member or a friend, or maybe if your friends and family don't like having them in the home because you got children or something, you could have the fire department or the police department hold on to them or something. There's options out there to reduce lethal means, and when you reduce those highly lethal means, you significantly decrease the likelihood that someone's going to complete a suicide, because all the other ways of doing it are significantly less lethal. And people, there's more time for someone to say, like, I made a mistake, I should not have done this, and then they can reach out for help again. And so that's where that conversation of, like, what are we going to do? You know, what can we do at this point? That's why it gets so important.
Is that why, and honest question, maybe the suicide rate is higher for men because they're more likely to go that way?
Oh, absolutely.
And the ladies are going to do the pills or whatever?
There's been a lot of research that shows that men have more access to more lethal means, and they have a preference for something like that, something that's, you know, it's right then and there. It's loud. It's quick. You know, they don't want to mess around with it. Whereas, according to the research that I've read, women are more thoughtful about it. They want to make sure that they don't want to make a mess. They want to keep things. They want to at least have an open casket, you know, things of that nature. And so
makes sense though.
The ways that we choose tend to.
It's so women.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of difference there, the way that we're kind of like raised and conditioned.
That's interesting in itself. 99, or is it 988?
988.
Thanks, Josh.
So 988 is a new crisis management system. From my understanding, it's also co-opted the old national suicide hotline. So it sort of does a bunch of things at once. Whereas before you'd have to contact 911 in the event of a mental health emergency, you get the police involved. And when you've got somebody who's thinking irrationally and may be armed, who could potentially be armed, the last thing you want to do is throw more guns into the mix and then think that something good is going to end up happening. And the other thing is we keep expecting more and more and more out of people who can't do all of that. You can't train the police to be therapists and police at the same time. They're going to have to half-ass something. And in that type of field, half-assing anything isn't good.
Right.
And so 988 is sort of the answer to that, where it doesn't have to be the person in crisis. It could be a loved one who knows that somebody in crisis, and they can call this line, and it's not going to be police officers showing up unless they determine, like the person on the other end determines that that's necessary. But they got that training. But for the most part, it's a crisis worker who's going to listen to you and sort of like work with you and figure out what it is that's best for you. It might be a thing where you might be looking for resources, and they can, you know, they have a better idea of what resources are available, and they can find you and link you up with them. They might be able to give you advice about how to talk to somebody that is in a bad spot. They might know, depending on the area, there might be a social worker who is able to go to that person and do sort of like an evaluation and see what it is that they need, sort of like a wellness check type of thing.
Good question. Good question.
I've never heard of it, so I didn't know.
I haven't either.
It's kind of new.
And they just started in July, I believe.
Is there any statistics or numbers on that? Are people using it? Are they aware of it?
Oh yeah, people are using it.
That's good.
And I don't have anything that tells me that the numbers are increasing, but it just makes sense that as people are more aware of it, more people are going to use it.
Oh, for sure.
And I think the idea of like not sending a police officer that could make a police report or something like that will make people feel more likely to use it, more likely to reach out. I guess like one of the areas that we could definitely use some more work with this new system is finding, we definitely need more social workers, and especially in the rural areas where they don't have somebody who can just drive out and say, like, you know, it's like midnight and drive out and check on somebody and see how they're doing.
That wellness check.
Yeah. But here in like a metropolitan area, it's much more likely that type of thing is more available.
And here too, we've also got a new initiative, Train to Save QC. And I went to it, but I was not able at that time to find where I actually signed up for that. It didn't give me the page or the form to sign up. And it was when it first rolled out. Are you familiar with that?
No.
If you could tell us more about that, you're aware?
I'm not aware of Save QC. I know
Train to Save QC, isn't that what it is? Where they're actually, I think it's exactly what you're talking about, where they're looking for people to be able to help somebody in that crisis situation. And so it's a training course that lay people can take, because that's one of the questions I have too, because what you mentioned, like someone says suicide, uses those words, and that's going to get our attention.
Wouldn't you have to have a degree, though, to be able to talk to these people like that?
No.
And
I mean, because I was a peer helper at my school, and I didn't obviously have a degree, but
You had
it's
some
a
training.
bit different if, yes, I did. We went like to retreats and stuff for weekends, but it's way different than I feel like an adult about to cross that line. You know what I mean?
Well, and I'm curious too about those more subtle signs in somebody, because I feel like I'm seeing that happening too with some of my friends on social media. And so can you kind of give us a clue of what the more subtle signs of somebody, and in which case then that could give us that opportunity to open the door. No, I'm not a professional. You can call 988, or we know Brandon, and he's really awesome.
To speak about training, there is a new initiative in the Quad Cities called the Zero Suicide Initiative.
It's the same thing, yes.
And there's a free training that you can sign up for that teaches you a very specific technique for handling situations like this.
I might have my names confused of it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe that's part of their ad campaign or something, but it is, they've had it on like WQAD. You can go to the website, and if you search QC Zero Suicide, something will pop up. And
Zero Suicide Initiative.
And it gives you, it's like a 2-hour online training, and you get a certificate at the end, so congratulations.
Yeah.
And then you can renew it every 2 years if that's something that you want to do. And so that's something that I recommend to people that, not necessarily people who know people who have mental health issues, but also people who put themselves in situations where they have a lot of contact with the public. Anybody who like
she's a bartender. When she's
bartenders,
not here.
especially bartenders, hairdressers, barbers.
Um,
I did hair for 12 years too.
Yeah.
Social workers, unpaid social workers.
Right?
You do. You sit and listen. You really do.
So, fun fact: when all of the state hospitals, like the state mental health hospitals, closed in like the 70s and 80s, they recognized that the whole idea was like we need people to get better in their communities, right? Instead of just shipping people into a hospital across the state or in another state, people can get help where they live, and that's much more humane, right? Beautiful idea, but there wasn't enough therapists in the area to do anything about it. So the idea became to look for hairdressers, to look for bartenders, to look for people who have these exact same types of qualifications, because they do have that gift of being able to connect with people, and people trust them. And then the idea was to offer training and to send them to school so that they can learn to become therapists and social workers.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it is available and out here in the Quad Cities for you, because you're on the front lines. I think in a bar you really are. They talk about people turning to, and what people choose to turn to.
And I'm very sensitive, so I carry people's their day with me, if that makes sense.
It does. You've got a lot of energies you're around.
Yeah.
Which is why I couldn't
I try to
do it.
just boost everybody up and give them high energy, but
And that's why they come back. There's a bar out in Columbus Junction, Iowa, and on the door it says something along the lines, this isn't verbatim, but when you come and sit in here, you will not be judged. And it really made me think about church. And I was a person that at one point in time would sit in church and look at someone and go, what are they doing here? Why are they here? I know where they were last night. Judging is part of human nature, and it's one of those things I've really had to work on continuously, continuous improvement to recognize it and to not be that way. But I think it's a big part of human nature, who we are. I think that ties into some of the bullying problems now even. And you know how you feel about this, and I wonder how some of this ties into with the kids. You have one in high school, you have one in preschool, and we watched the video a week ago of the kid got beat up outside of school. There's the one going around now in Ankeny where the kid got beat up in the hallway. And this appears to be normal. What can we do for our kids in this chaos?
That's tough. There's we love to be able to point fingers, because it makes us feel better. We have to have answers for everything. And the truth is, middle school just sucks.
It does.
I agree.
It really does.
And I remember things like this happening when I was in school too. Not to lighten it, because I know it's a bigger deal now, but I went home crying one day and cried to my dad for 4 hours because of a fight I saw in junior high school. It was horrible. It stuck with me for 10. I still remember it. I remember everything.
Right. Core memory unlocked, right?
Yeah.
Middle schoolers are it's just the perfect storm of different circumstances that are coming together. And then, you've got puberty, you've got, different you've got brain chemistry involved too, where now their emotions are really affecting their decision making, and they don't have any practice controlling it. And then you've got this desire to be accepted by your peers. And so you've got this increase in aggression tendencies, impulsivity, and then you throw them in a building together and then expect things to turn out okay.
Yeah.
It's no, it's not going to turn out okay.
Yeah. Finding who they are.
Yeah, they're exploring that stuff
Yeah.
too. And it's just it's a mess.
I go into the schools. I do the comedy hypnosis shows. I'm popular with the kids until they hear me say that I believe at about 14 the girls should go to this school, the boys should go to that school, and there would be so much less drama and a lot more education. But they don't like that, and I don't blame them, because at about that age is what I would have learned in school if I wasn't thinking about boys.
Well, that's the best part of the day.
Right?
There you go. So I'm just saying. It's a whole lot. And yes, you throw those hormones in the mix, and it's challenging for kids now, especially. I'm at a loss for what's happening in the schools and how the kids can't control that, and or they somehow thinks violence is the answer.
Yeah, that's sort of that's going to be part of the equation, no matter what. You throw that age group together, you throw enough kids, hell, you throw enough people together, that's going to be somebody's answer to something.
That's true.
And one of the, I guess, to kind of flip this and kind of reframe it, it's sort of as troublesome as it is, there's a lot of opportunity for growth in that stage too. Especially with dating, because they're terrible at it. When these kids, they fall in love, right? They have these crushes, and that's where they just follow themselves, right? And so immediately, the first relationship most of us ever have with a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, we smother it to death. The relationship it's just ruined, because that's all you focus on is just each other. You lose all of your friends, you fail your classes, and it's just a mess, right? And then the breakup happens, and then you're heartbroken, and then you're like, I will never do that again. And then you meet somebody else, and then you do your stomach is doing the same thing. And then that time you're like, okay, I'm not going to get too close to this one. And that way you're kind of distant. and then they end up cheating on you because you don't show them interest. You've got that
But
distance.
cheating at that age is like talking on the phone and like stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, how do they cheat though? They're 12, aren't they 13 in junior high?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the idea is like if you aren't spending time with me, if
Yeah.
you give anybody else attention,
Right.
that's cheating. And then when we behave that way,
Exactly.
the other person doesn't take it. They don't stand for it. Like if they know what's good for them, they don't stand for that. And then you learn that way. Maybe I shouldn't be a dick like that. Maybe I have to respect people's space.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a cycle until they figure it out, basically.
It goes back and forth, and eventually, if you're doing things right, you end up in the middle where you know that you can't always be with that person, and you're supposed to be able to grow individually, but you're also supposed to grow as a relationship too. So there's a lot of good things that happen out of it if conditions are right. But
It's
a lot of people,
1 in a million.
well, a lot of parents mess up because they've fallen for this idea that they've got more control over their kids than they actually do.
Womp womp.
Yeah, like people would be really uncomfortable if they knew just how little control they have over their kids. And whenever there's anything going on, what's the first thing you hear people say? Control your kids.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can weaponize fear, and
It's a powerful motivator.
and it manipulates kids into doing things you want them to do. But, unless you want to never see your kids again as soon as they get options, that's go ahead.
Well, and you mentioned bullying in school, and so there's the resilience factor, and maybe that's what, people say that, they throw that out there, kids are resilient. And on one hand, I agree, and on the other hand, I say they shouldn't need to be resilient, let them be happy. You mentioned the pendulum and finding that balance. Is there a balance with this? On kids and developing more resilient people, and they shouldn't have to deal with this bullshit to begin with.
Right. And that's the fine line between adversity and abuse, right? Because there are circumstances that we just can't control and we have to adapt to it. And that's the spice of life. But then there's abuse, and that's definitely where the hard line is. And now, what's the definition of abuse, right? You've got your physical abuse, you got your emotional abuse, you have financial abuse, psychological abuse, you've got all these different things. And some are a lot easier to prove than others. And so kids get pretty clever with how they bully each other. Especially in middle school, you learn that okay, I get in trouble if I hit people because people can see that I hit people. So I'm going to learn this new thing where I'm going to exclude them from the table. Right? I'm not going to talk to them anymore. I'm going to spread rumors, but it's not me that's saying this. It's I heard it from a friend. I heard it from somebody that,
Right.
And then, so that's social aggression, and kids it's almost impossible to figure out who started what.
Right.
And so they'll again, pointing the finger, trying to figure out who's responsible for that. You're going to have CSI middle school, is somebody going to start interviewing all the kids to figure out what's going on?
Nobody has time for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do it over and over and over.
You really can't. And so the little bastards are pretty smart.
I do
Social
have
media.
something that my aunt and me discussed, that we feel like, okay, so our parents' generation, they were, in their heads, they wanted to look perfect, like the perfect family. They didn't want anybody to know that they fought, like we were all ducks in a row. There's never any, whatever that goes on behind the closed doors. And when it did, it was like, OMG, did you hear that Karen's daughter, blah, 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 right? Okay, so then our generation comes in and we're like we're starting to figure that out. And we're like, okay, it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to not be perfect and put together. And so they're like, we don't care what people think as much. So it's kind of gone into that. But then our kids now are like, nope, I'm going to show my feelings today and you're going to find out. You know what I mean? And they're so much more aware that it's okay to be who you are. But it's taken them doing that. And then we're like, oh shit. What? We don't want people to know, so-and-so was this or whatever it may be, got failed in freaking junior high. I don't know. Because we're told to look perfect. We were told to be perfect, right? Do you feel that way? Is that kind of like the new like the kids now, they're very aware of their emotions and their feelings and their everything, and they're not scared to show it.
That's actually one of my favorite reasons to work with kids, like kids and adolescents and young adults. That generation, they tell each other that they're in therapy,
Right.
whereas you can't tell a boomer that you're in therapy. Right. They'll be like, oh my gosh, you got to keep that a secret.
Yeah.
Because that's going to look bad on me, or it's going to look bad on the family. Or you're in therapy, you must be talking bad about me there. That's what you're doing, right? And it's just like, it's toxic,
Yeah.
But Gen Z doesn't play that game, and and it's amazing. So they're very open about how they're feeling and about their health, and they reach out. And as kids are, especially the younger end of this, like they're not going to be always making the right decision about who to disclose what to, right? But that's part of the game of growing up, is like you make mistakes and you learn from it. But they're definitely learning skills and getting a lot of practice and being able to reach out for help.
And all in all, like to break the cycle. We should allow this. Mm-hmm. We should allow them to talk about their feelings. And, if they need to talk to somebody else and there is things going on, you should allow them to talk about it, because otherwise it's just going to keep going in the family, right?
Right.
Well, and exactly right. But keywords, he said, they were given the skills. And our parents weren't given any skills at all.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not
they
blaming
were given
them. I'm just saying
hammer,
that.
and the hammer had to work for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It took
And
many
then my
years.
generation, we got the screwdriver and duct tape. We got a little bit more to work with.
Right.
Duct tape fixes everything, I want you to know. And then, and I've mentioned this too, like our kids are us on steroids. They take it and they take it to the next level. And these are really good changes. But for those of us that weren't given those skills, and this is the natural progression of this conversation that I wanted it to take, so thank you, the coping skills. Some of us use humor, some people don't get it. What are coping skills that if you aren't taught at home, a person in their 40s or their 50s can pick up? Which reminds me, I wasn't going to do this now, but it just kind of seems right. It's her birthday tomorrow. I got you a worry stone.
Oh, cool. Aw, thank you.
Oh, very sweet.
That's
is
one of the
sweet.
things that I use
Thank you.
is a worry stone. And I don't
Okay.
know if you're familiar with them, but if you pull it out and you'll start naturally.
Rubbing it.
Yeah.
She
That's
didn't
a
know how to
whole
say
different
that.
show.
Yeah. Oh, it's very smooth. Yes.
Exactly. And so it should have a little groove for you to just, but anyway,
Thank you very much.
besides a worry stone, because not everybody's into rocks. I'm into rocks. I can find one in every pocket if you try. What other things can someone do to deal with unexpected stress and then the long-term stress?
I think the worry stone is a great example because a lot of times people don't even really know they're coping, or what they're doing is considered a coping skill. A lot of people think that a coping skill is something, or you have to learn how to, do box breathing, or it's some weird fancy technique with the name or something like that. When bouncing your leg is a coping skill.
As I'm doing now.
Right?
It is. It's releasing energy. It
Your
is.
body is stressed because it's got energy to displace, and there's no place for it to go because you're sitting here for a podcast. And it's not designed to sit here for podcasts. So you're going to get that energy out somehow by bouncing your leg. And it's great. Fidgeting is something that people do, and it's like with their hands especially. And that's it's for the same reasons. But then, you've got those other people that don't understand that. They think that by fidgeting, you're distracting other people. It's like, that's for you. If somebody's
We're trying
fidgeting,
not to distract other people.
well, yeah. And you deserve to learn too. And so if you're sitting and you're fidgeting, you're actually paying attention better to what's going on because you're getting that energy out with your fidgeting.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah, but then that kid gets shamed, or that adult gets shamed for it, and then they got to sit there and spend the rest of the class or rest of the workday okay, I got to stay still, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble.
Right.
And then that's coping.
And then they're thinking about that, not what they're supposed to be learning.
Well,
Right.
they just got in trouble for a natural relaxation technique. Rocking is naturally calming. Autistic children do it to calm themselves. I do it in line in the grocery store when I get in the wrong line. Humming is naturally calming. All petting dogs, all sorts of animals, being out in nature, all sorts of things are naturally calming. But if I walk outside to take a deep breath in nature and then I get yelled at when I come back in for it, yeah, you're going to get the exact opposite response. So it's kind of the exact same thing. Only I never thought about it that way because, I have those fidget things. I just like to be busy.
Yeah.
I like my hands like to be busy. That's my excuse for
We
it.
have 100 at my house.
Yeah.
Me and my girls are all the same.
Yeah, just something to keep my hands busy, which is probably something I've told myself coming from a farming family that you always have to be busy. So I'm still perpetuating it with finding it difficult to sit still or wanting to do something with my hands.
And that's a very good transition from cleaning your whole house unnecessarily, to stay busy, and transitioning from like, I have to stay busy to fidgeting with a fidget toy of some sort. Fantastic transition. Because if you're cleaning your house like 5 times a week because you were told that like, well, idle hands are the tool of the devil or whatever, then, and you're doing that to escape sinning or something like that, that's not relaxing. If you're doing something to escape punishment, that's not a relaxing thing. And I know a lot of people will also say playing video games is what they do to relax. And it can be. I play video games to relax. But the games I play are relaxing games. And if you've got somebody who's screaming at the TV, like, I fucking killed you, it's like,
Yeah.
that's not relaxing.
relaxing.
That's not relaxing. And so you might be distracted and using distraction as a coping tool. But that is not the same as being relaxed. And so just like with the analogy of using tools, there's a right tool for the right job. And if you're using a particular tool for an inappropriate job, that's when we can say that the coping skill is problematic, like with humor. If you're using humor in a way that sort of reframes a negative into maybe a neutral or maybe a positive, that's a good thing, because sometimes, like if I walked out and I saw that someone keyed my car or something, what can I do about it? It's already done, and so if I can, turn it into a commentary about, modern art or something like that, and it,
positive,
that's going to be okay, but if I make it a routine that I'm going to do everything I can to not feel negative feelings, that's not okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spilled on my shirt, coffee on my shirt on the way in to the podcast today. And so I had a choice to show up with coffee on my shirt or to have a wet shirt that I've tried to clean. And one of the first things she said is, your shirt you can change. I'm going with the flow. Yeah, it's not really in the grand scheme of things.
Well, wait a minute. I said you could change into the shirt, but I really like that shirt you're
You did,
wearing.
yes.
So,
Yes, you did. But yeah, I was showing up here to meet you for the first time, wearing a shirt that was wet, and not not professional at all. But at the same time, I do like that song "I Am Human" because I feel so human a lot of the times. And as a Virgo, being a perfectionist, being human sometimes crushes me because we don't like to make mistakes as Virgos. But we don't have a whole lot of time yet. We've asked some questions. Is there something that you feel strongly about where you have a time to share that you want to share in the next 5-10 minutes or so?
Sure. As far as resources go, reaching out to agencies, for therapy or for psychiatry or like things of that nature is, can be extremely helpful, for a lot of people. Even if you think it's just grief that you're just like, once the holiday season's over with, that's it. But then that this is coming up next holiday season. It might be wise to kind of try to nip that in the bud and talk to somebody. Therapists aren't the stuffy, I'm going to sit in a chair, you're going to lay on a couch, I'm going to look away from you and just look at like, that's not a thing. What really happens, like, I guess if I want to sum up therapy, I like to say that if relationships can be damaging, relationships can also be healing. And so seeking out a therapist is looking for somebody who's trained in how to provide a healing relationship. And not all therapists are going to be for everybody. So that's important too. And so if you find that you start therapy with somebody and you're just not feeling a click, talk to them about it. There might be something that they can adjust. It might be a minor thing that they can adjust that would help you click better. Or they might know somebody who would be a perfect therapist for you. Chances are they're probably feeling it too. But we're also trained in letting people sit in discomfort for a little bit because that's how we grow. So there's a little bit of that. We weaponize silence all the time, so it's a dick move that we do, but it's for a reason, so that those are important things to consider when looking for a therapist. And the other thing is NAMI offers support groups and they're free and they meet regularly throughout the month. So if you check your local NAMI chapter out, they will post what those hours are. And you basically, all you have to do is, I believe you just contact them to tell them that you're coming so that they can expect somebody to be there.
That's cool.
And then, and what's great about it is it's not like, it's all volunteers. So the people running the group have lived experience with mental illness. And the members of the groups generally tend to not only know somebody or love somebody who has a mental illness, a lot of them also have it themselves. And so there's a very welcoming community, like readily available for anybody. And
like they want to be there opposed to have to be there.
Exactly. Yeah, these aren't court referrals or anything like that. Right. These are just people who are like, I just need to connect with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Turning pain into purpose.
Right. Just like what we were talking about in the beginning. We're having, if someone's disclosing to you that they're suicidal or that they're having dark thoughts, shut up and listen. Connect with them on it. Don't talk them out of their feelings. You might talk them out of their actions. If they're saying what they're wanting to do, you can say like, well, let's do something different because, the other thing is important. You don't promise to keep secrets for that. If someone tells you that, they want you to keep a secret and then they're going to tell you that they're suicidal, you can't promise that. So don't do it. The reason why you can't do this is because you love them and you aren't going to keep it. Right?
So it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 12 or 102. If someone tells you they're going to commit suicide and they've asked you to keep it secret, that's not a secret you can keep.
No. Tell somebody.
Yep. Because those subtle signs that you're asking for before, a lot of them aren't very subtle. But the subtle ones are the things where we tend to explain it away because we are trying to avoid those difficult conversations. But some other subtleties could be not necessarily behaviors that they're doing, but things that you might know about them. Like if they've particularly taken a huge financial hit, that's a warning sign where you should have a conversation with your friend or family member. Just like, hey, how are you doing? That's a great way to start it. And push a little bit. You can, if they're like, oh, I'm fine. It's like, I don't know how you're dealing with this loss.
That's a good line.
I don't know how I would be able to do it. What's this like for you? Like, how are you getting through this?
Because everybody says fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
That's usually, and that's like a social script, it's like, how you doing? Fine, because that's sort of like a hello, I see you, and then you're like, hi, I see you too. But when you're like, no, this isn't fine. You can't be fine.
How could you be? Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, this is one of those conversations. You actually want to know more. And then, that might encourage them to open up a bit more about it.
I got my daughter a t-shirt for Christmas of the tangled Christmas lights and it says, I'm fine. I'm fine. Because that's about what
when
she
says.
When I say
fine, that means
fine.
Run for your life. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, I have heard that depression, suicide versus homicide. Suicide is depression.
Suicide is not just depression.
Okay.
There are many types of reasons someone might have those types of thoughts, and depression may not be one of them. It's a myth that only depressed people kill themselves. Some people are really anxious, Some people are stressed, but depression isn't the only sort of warning sign there. And so again, like someone who just lost like all their finances to FTX's bankruptcy or whatever, you know, that's something, you don't have enough time to be depressed at that point. Your whole life just collapsed because you sunk all of you took that risk with all of your money into some people, and then they ran off with it. Now you've got nothing. You don't have time to be depressed at that point, and that's when that impulsivity type stuff comes in. So again, it's like those are the warning signs that you kind of look for. Is I know this person, and there's no way that they're handling this as well as we think they are.
Right.
So those big stressors, job changes, divorce, moving, things like that.
Moving.
Yeah, that's
Moving
and when
is
you add them all
horrible.
up. I see things being written over there, but I don't. Is someone have a question for Brandon?
Yeah. No.
No, they're just commenting.
They're just saying hi. Yep. And they're talking about what we're talking about. He said, Chris Rigsby said, what I do to relax is hang upside down on my inversion table listening to classic music. That's a huge thing. Like, I feel like that would relax the heck out of me.
Well, and music is mind altering, mood changing. So yes, music is a wonderful. Is that a tool?
Absolutely. I was in 4 punk bands in high school, and like playing music, listening to music, anything music related was
Calming.
it was calming, but it was also an outlet, you know, because like being an angry teenager, if you don't really know what you're angry at, music might tell you what to be angry at. And you're like, yeah, you know, fuck you, government, you know,
Yeah, totally.
fuck you, school, you know.
Yeah.
I like that
stuff.
because if I think about the songs that we liked
like
in high
Beastie
school,
Boys.
yeah, exactly, and I don't need no education, smoking in the boys' room. So yeah, that makes
That
sense.
hypocrite smokes 2 packs a day.
Exactly.
You can't get away with saying that to your dad, but if you're sitting in
Right?
your car and you're screaming
Totally
at the top of your
screaming
lungs,
it,
it
yeah.
feels great.
We're getting close to the end of the time. One thing, I emceed the NAMI walk in Henry County twice. And so I've been there when family members have spoke about their family members that committed suicide. So how do you, when someone's been through that, and that's what you said about the people that are volunteers, they're people that their dad, their husband, their brother or sister committed suicide. Grief is very individualized. How does someone like, what is your coping skills or mechanisms for a situation like that?
Like as though you're interfacing with somebody who recently lost somebody to suicide, or you lost somebody.
Both. Because I don't know about you, but I've lost somebody to suicide in the last 3 months.
Well, like you said, grief is highly individualized. You know, have you heard of the 5 stages of grief?
I have.
It's horseshit.
Oh,
It's It's a good list of 5 things you might feel if you're grieving.
saw that reading I did on grief to prepare.
You can, like, with the 5 stages is a pretty bad model. A good scientific model allows you to make predictions in the real world environment. With the 5 stages of grief model, if you study it, they say you can skip stages, you can go backwards. You could do
That's for sure.
You can do stages multiple times, you know. And again, it's a good list of 5 things you might feel, but it doesn't do you any good as far as like what's coming next. You know, there's another method, another model that allows you to kind of like, it points out that you do go back and forth a lot with grief. There's active grief, which is the sad stuff, right? We're all familiar with what that might look like the isolating, the crying, things of that nature. And then there's the progress stage where you actually feel like you are doing better. Like maybe you're working again, or you're talking to people again. You took a bath, stuff like that. And in this model, you're supposed to go back and forth. And in the beginning, you're going to probably hang out in one side more than the other. But if you feel yourself swinging one way or the other, just allow it to happen, because you're learning, you're progressing through it. And with time, you will go back and forth less, and you'll stay in the progress stage more, but you'll never stop having those sad thoughts about the person you lost, you know, because they meant something to you. But you will spend less time in that active grief phase at that point, as if you allow.
But they
this to produce.
should allow their feelings to come out then, so that they're not suppressing it for later, right?
Absolutely. If you suppress like one way or the other, some people are terrified of being sad, so they cling to the progress stage and they fake their way through it, and then eventually they just can't anymore and they collapse into it. The other side is some people think that progressing means you're forgetting, and so they stay too long in the grief phase, and so they don't allow themselves to do these other things. And they don't get better, you know. And that's how that sort of, you can get that predictability. That's why that's a good model, because you can predict what you're supposed to do with it. And if you just let it happen, if you just go with the flow, like you do.
Well, and I love that allowing.
Yeah.
Allowing is huge. Not forcing, not chasing.
Nope.
Just allowing. And a lot of life really is allowing. So, I mean, I love that. This last couple months, this last year, I think especially has been, I don't have enough fingers for the people I've lost.
Yeah. Allow.
I ain't going to feel my feelings right this second.
You can make in those states, make appointments. Make appointments for yourself to check in with those feelings. Like if I don't want to blubber in a grocery store if I see a box of cereal that reminds me of my loved one, but I will be like, oh, there's still something there, and then I make an appointment for myself later on to sit on my bedroom floor and cry like a baby.
I do that if I find myself, as I'm sitting in front of chocolate-covered strawberries, if I find I'm a recovering emotional eater. It's a day-by-day process.
Of course.
So if I find myself looking at especially Lay's potato chips, and it's really bad if I'm going to put them in sour cream. And so I have to stop and go, okay, what's the date? What's happening? It's the anniversary of when your dad was diagnosed with cancer. It's the anniversary of blah, blah, blah. And then I can sit and check myself and go, okay, you're going to take this pity party home, and you're going to let yourself have it for today, but then tomorrow there's no reason to go back there again. Or I can stand there and go, I don't need it because I'm fully aware this is why I am turning to food. And that's what I had mentioned earlier about what people turn to. Some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to drugs, some people turn to food. My parents smoked. I wasn't, because they did, I didn't like it. I wasn't going that route. So food to me was a safe route to go.
Right.
I learned you can't cry and eat at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
The pleasure centers are activated, and it doesn't work. But I also know that if I don't, once a year at least, me and my friends, we get out and we do our own Frozen. We scream, let it go at the top of our lungs.
Wonderful.
Each year, New Year's Eve, of all the stuff, and let it go. Which I love that kids now have these movies like this, and that emotions movie that talks about anger and all the different emotions. And so it does open the doors for kids on their level to be able to have that conversation. But I'm still that 5-year-old inside that wasn't given those tools. So at one point in time, food was what I turned to. Now I have a horse, now I have nature, now I carry rocks in my pocket, I have a podcast, things like that, to be able to talk it out. And you can read what Hayes is talking about. Out loud, dear.
Chris, actually, let's start up there. It says, some of us are in a dark place or think about suicide often, just can't bring themselves to talk about about the things. Some people have only had themselves to lean on, and they're stubborn. They don't want to put their pain on somebody else's life. So they fight through their emotions alone the best they can just to survive. They feel weak if they look to others for help. And I agree with that. And then Hayes said, some people turn to meth, and I just like meth heads. But yet, when I talk about that situation, I get shit on for it.
What's they turn to?
That is a drug they turn to. Yeah, like.
And what Chris said, I think those are the bravest people, the ones that ask for help.
Yeah, it's people like to think that hiding your vulnerability is what makes you strong. I say it's the opposite. Letting everybody know, letting the world know, it's like, hey, I'm open. You know, you can hurt me, but I'm not afraid of you hurting me because I know I'm going to get better. You know, that's strong.
Those are the strong people.
That's strong. It's like,
I
come
agree.
at me, bro.
Yeah, I got nothing to hide.
I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a combat vet and I cry.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. You know, whatever. We've all got good reasons. And the thing is, like, everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got.
I know, right?
You know, and so like Chris was pointing out, it's like, yeah, we don't want to put our feelings on other people. And so that's what makes us not want to do that. Because we love people so much. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to be a burden. And that's a beautiful thing in its own right. But at the same time, nobody deserves to be in this pain by itself. You know, human misery needs to be seen. And that's where therapists are trained to not allow this stuff to ruin their lives or to be burdensome. When I have a rough session with the client, when they leave, I visualize them walking out with a big old duffel bag with their own stuff. That's theirs. That's not mine. I didn't earn the right to cry over their stuff. That's their stuff.
That's a good one for you too. Working.
I know. I can't watch like the news anymore because I literally will cry about it for 3 days later. But that being said, too, I love people talking to me about things. I love it, whether it be good, bad, sad, you know, creepy, whatever the case may be, because I've had it all. Let me tell you, I love people and I love their stories, and it's almost like I want to be Oprah. Like, I will dig as deep as I can in that 5 minutes we may be talking while you have a drink or whatever it may be. Maybe just having some lunch, but I will dig and I pry, and then I tell you, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to answer, you know. But I don't know if that's what makes it so that I get more stories, but like I definitely carry it with me home.
You're saying you respect them. Like, you're
Yeah,
safe
I
with me.
truly
I
like. I mean, it hurts my soul for them, you know. I want to help them, and if I can't help them, then that's
In his visualization, then it would be helpful to you,
Right.
Because working around all those people and all of that, yeah, to not carry it home with you. I like the story about the worry tree, and the person that he imagines that he has the worry tree right out in front of the house, and he hangs all his worries on it before he walks in. And they're always there if he wants them when he walks back out the next day. But ideally, you leave them hanging on the worry tree. With working with people, I don't know if that's possible when they're done to go like, okay, that's your worry, and hang it like a stocking on the fireplace. That's yours. I'll
got
let
their
you
name
keep
on it.
that. Yeah, you can keep that. Save it for later.
check
the
on
next
them
time
later,
you come
or
in,
yeah.
yes. Next you
make
come
sure
in,
you
we'll
don't
pull it
forget.
down.
Yeah.
See if there's a treat inside there for you. This has been what I wanted and more. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's people listening like Chris who was brave enough to be vulnerable and say what he's got going on. And then Hayes who comes in, you're right. People turn too. And that's the thing about the homeless people, the meth heads, and seeing they've got their own issues going on.
They do.
So, and not judging and being kind. We are all human. So it is time to wrap up. We've gone a little bit long, but I so appreciate it, especially since I asked for like 30 minutes of your time and we've taken over an hour. But I think this is a conversation we needed to have, and people will be able to listen to it, not just today, but they'll be able to find it on Facebook and on YouTube. And if we help one person with something today, mission accomplished.
Right.
So we can relax. We are filmed here at Done Right Studios, so shout out to Done Right, Kelly Jeffries. Our producer sponsor is Holidays in North Park Mall. If you're looking for something Christmassy, they have it. If you're looking for a gift for your therapist, they have it. That little gift for your teacher, the school bus driver, the big gift for that important person in your life, I bet you can find it at Holidays. Thank you for joining us. Next week we have, we're going to have fun because we're celebrating Kelly's birthday.
Oh.
So we're going to have fun next week too. Thank you for watching Coffee, Coochies Conversation. I'm Cheryl.
I'm Kelly.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for having me.
You're awesome. Thank you.